Kickoff Live, presented by DC Lottery.
Are you ready for some Monday early evening football? You are looking at the Confluence in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, home to the only undefeated team in the NFL and the site of tonight's game featuring your Washington football team and the Pittsburgh Steelers. Our pregame coverage begins right now as we welcome you into Washington Football Kickoff Live, presented by DC Lottery. I'm Jordan Giorgio, joined now by our superstar list of analysts. We have Brian Mitchell, Trevor Matich, Torrey Smith, and Jason Campbell. Good evening to you all. Guys, the toughest test of the season thus far is here for the Washington football team. What are you watching for today, B. Mitch?
Well, I think no one gave David a chance, but he slayed Goliath. And when he went into it with a game plan, let's see if Washington go and stick with their game plan and knock off the Steelers.
But in this case, David seems to be growing a little bit taller because this team has won their last 2 games in a row. If they continue that kind of improvement, they have a chance to play with the Steelers.
They have the opportunity to go out there and prove their last couple of games wasn't a fluke. This team is getting better. They've been trying to learn to win, and now it's here. You had the opportunity to give this team their first loss.
The headlines about this game is the two guys, that's 2 signal callers. You're talking about 2 guys that have a great comeback story between Alex Smith and Ben Roethlisberger, and which defensive front is going to have the most sacks tonight, because both of them are in top 5 in their category.
No doubt Washington has a tough task today. They'll be trying to figure out how to beat a team that hasn't been beaten. We'll ask our experts how they would slow down the undefeated Steelers. And while Chase Young is a household name, the country was introduced to Antonio Gibson on Thanksgiving Day. We'll take a look at how Washington's other rookie is evolving. And J.P. Finley, how about one of the guys blocking for him?
Thank you, Jordan. It's going to be interesting to see Ron Rivera play in December. His teams historically perform well in Christmas month. But let's talk about Brandon Sheriff. He's been a key cog in the revamped run game. We're going to dig into that and much more here on Kickoff Live.
Bring the bass! End off Gibson, going for the edge, and in. Touchdown! Touchdown, Washington! Washington hands off to Antonio Gibson, who streaks down the sideline. 24-yard touchdown run, Antonio Gibson. Gibson has the space at the 30, 25, into the free, 10-5, touchdown!
Third on the day.
Honestly, it's the story of my life. Every time, the spotlight come on, seems like God's always watching down on me. To be able to come out on national TV and do this is an amazing feeling. So, story of my life.
Antonio Gibson, fresh off a 3-touchdown game in Dallas, leads us to our question of the day. In all likelihood, you guys, Justin Herbert is your favorite to be Rookie of the Year, barring injury, of course. But, B. Mitch, let me ask you, how close is Gibson to being in this discussion?
Well, I think he's definitely in the discussion. But when you look at what Herbert is doing as a quarterback, they normally get, I think, votes weighted towards them. But you also have Justin Jefferson up there in Minnesota. When they lose Diggs, and you don't think that they're going to have a player. And he stepped in, and I think he's played as well or better than Diggs was playing. So you have to count him too. But when you look at a guy like Gibson who comes in, move a position, he's playing terrific. But a lot of times it comes down to how many games is your team actually winning also.
Trevor, if you're on this committee, this voting committee, what are you looking at that Gibson has accomplished so far this year to have him in the running?
I'm looking at a lot of intangibles, a lot of things that don't show up on the stat sheet, Jordan, because one of the things that he's done so well is improve over the course of the year. I think the committee should look at that. I think they should also look at the team around him. This offensive line has been a patchwork because of injuries. As a matter of fact, there were times when they had to take the right tackle and put him over left tackle so that the third-string left tackle wouldn't have to start there. And so he still was able to grow and progress. I would tend to think that they would look at Antonio Gibson and see a guy who is growing with a lot of problems around him that he himself has had to solve. And I hope they look at his second half of the season, not the first.
Yeah, I agree with a lot Trevor just said, Jordan. When you think about Rookie of the Year, there is a lot of things that have to go with it. But, for Gibson, he had to deal with an offensive line that's kind of been put together piece by piece over the last couple of weeks, and they're still trying to get to that 5 that they really like. But you're talking about, what Jefferson is doing in Minnesota. This kid has taken the league by storm. He's the second guy that ever put the Vikings uniform on to have 1,000 yards in his first year as a receiver, and that's saying a lot from the fact that Chris Carter played there as well, but Randy Moss was the first guy. So, and they won the last 5 out of 6. So I think winning also plays a factor in this. If Washington can continue to win, I think it gives them a big chance to have an opportunity to be in the top 3 for Rookie of the Year.
Yeah, I think winning is key, but we have to be honest here. This award favors quarterbacks and first-round picks, and he isn't either one of those guys, so it's going to be tough for him to win it. I think he's in the hunt, but Justin Jefferson's doing some amazing things in Minnesota, and obviously Justin Herbert. Now, if Joe Burrow was healthy, he would have been the Rookie of the Year. Why? He was the #1 pick, the expectations, and people tend to favor that.
The last 2 weeks, you guys, he hasn't been up against a very good run defense, actually 2 of the worst. Today, he will be up against the 8th best run defense in the entire league. That's a big up in competition. What kind of matchup is he up against today, Trevor?
Well, he's up against a swarming defense, one that's very difficult for the offensive line to get in front of sometimes. And you're right, they are the 8th best rushing defense in the league, but they're only the 16th best at giving up yards per carry. They're giving up about 4.5 yards per carry. So as long as Gibson can get yards on first down to allow them to convert third and manageable, get drives strung together, he's got a chance against this defense because it's not the rock that people think it might be.
So when it comes to establishing the run, you guys, something we've been harping on for weeks and weeks, and for good reason, I want to show you the stats because they show that when Washington runs the ball at least 30 times a game, they win games. Combined for 70 carries, you see there the last 2 weeks. So if they don't run the ball over 30 times, Mitch, is this team even winning games?
Well, they haven't. They haven't this year. But I think ultimately what happens in that situation, when they're running the ball and they get a lot of confidence, they start getting yards. They start getting first downs. So you stick to the run. I think they have to have that mindset where if you have a little area where you get 2 yards, 1 yard, don't go away from it because this team has proven when they run it effectively, they normally win the game.
And B-Mitch said it perfectly. You just have to stay the course. And unfortunately for this team, it's been times where you have to do something to get this offense going. So teams tend to get pass happy when that happens, but this team has to stay the course in order to win games.
Yeah, you have to continue to run the football. You know, like both of these guys said, it takes so much pressure off your offensive line as well because linemen, they want to get their hand on someone as quick as possible. And what's the quickest way to do that? Is running the football downhill. You got to win the point of attack, and it helps your offensive tackles in the passing game where defenses are not just able to peel their ears back and come out to the quarterback because you can hit them with some draw plays. You can hit them with some counters and powers, and it helps your play action pass. There's no play action pass if there's no run game.
Yeah, you've got to commit to the run, but you can't commit to it unless you can get some first downs. Otherwise, what you're doing is, 1 yard on first down, you're 2nd and 9, then you're 3rd and 7, and you're always punting. You're 3 and out all the time. At some point, if the run's not working, you need to help the run by using the short pass instead of the run to string together a few first downs and allow some more play calling creativity. Then you can go back to pounding the run a little bit more. But in order for the run to be committed to, the run has to succeed.
Quality over quantity, that's for sure. Guys, let's welcome in team insider JP Finley to the show. He is brought to us courtesy of Orsman Automotive of Virginia. JP, we're talking this run game, specifically Antonio Gibson. Rocky start for him the first quarter of the season, but how have you seen him evolve through 11 games now?
Well, I mean, consider that this time last year he was playing wide receiver at the University of Memphis, and now he's in the conversation for NFL Rookie Offensive Player of the Year. I'd say he's developed pretty darn well. 11 touchdowns on the season. He's got a touchdown in 5 straight games. His 11 TDs are just 2 off the record that Alfred Morris set for a rookie running back in 2012 with 13 TDs. I think Gibby's going to get there. I think he's going to get there relatively easy. And there is a little bit of chicken and egg argument when you talk about when you run the ball, you win games. Well, typically when you're winning games, you're able to run the ball more, especially in the fourth quarter, to ice away a victory. So sometimes you got to wonder, is it they run the ball to win or they're winning so they get to run the ball? One key factor, however, in all of the running success this team has had recently is Brandon Scherff. Coach Ron Rivera talked about him earlier this week.
I think he's done a great job. He really has. And it doesn't matter who he lines up next to. He's a great communicator, and I think that's as important as it gets. Does a great job. He and Chase really are really good together in terms of their combinations. And watching him with Morgan has been really cool. But he's handled David Sharp really nicely. He's helped David out an awful lot. And I think those, when you have a guy like that, it really doesn't matter who you put next to him. He's going to be able to communicate and get things worked out, and that's what he's shown us.
The Washington football team is going to have some interesting decisions to make with Scherff this offseason. He's playing on a franchise tag right now. You got to expect the salary cap will actually decrease in the 2021 season due to COVID expenditures. So that could impact what they do with Scherff next year. As for this year, and specifically for today against the Pittsburgh Steelers, keep this in mind. You heard Rivera talk about how impressive what Sheriff has done when he's got Morgan Moses next to him. Moses had to play left tackle the past few weeks due to injuries. Moses should be back on the right side. Trev, I want to ask you, with this Washington run game, and we've heard a lot about the Pittsburgh defense, having Rouye, Sheriff, Moses, does that give them an advantage, especially with Bud Dupree out?
Well, that gives them a solid right side of the offensive line, and they need to have that kind of stability somewhere on the offensive line, because at left guard and left tackle, they are absolutely a work in progress right now. And Sheriff is perfect for that kind of role. He's got a big picture view of offensive football, not just from a blinders on right guard position. I mean, in high school, he played some quarterback. Think about that. Your starting right guard was a high school quarterback, right? That means that all that communication that Coach Rivera was talking about has the purpose of solving problems. And a guy with a bigger picture, not just with the physical ability to block, but with the mental perspective to solve the problems, you've got a terrific cog in that line, and you can't allow him to leave via free agency.
Thanks, JP.
Trevor, you would love it. Every once in a while in practice, Brandon Sheriff drops back as a quarterback to run through some O-line drills. The guys get a huge kick out of him. He's still got a pretty good arm on him. He throws that fade really nice.
Jealous you get to witness that, JP. Thanks so much for joining us. We look forward to some live updates you'll have for us a little bit later on in the show. Coming up, before Antonio Gibson's 3-touchdown outburst, Washington swung momentum by stopping a Dallas big punt. We're taking you inside the play next. Plus, the Steelers are off to the best start in their franchise's long history, but find out which analyst is calling them the worst undefeated team ever. Stay with us.
Sunday Night 7 on the NBC Sports Predictor app is giving away money. Lots of it. Predict what will happen on Sunday Night Football for a chance to win $100 grand. That's right, $100,000 up for grabs every contest, and it's free to play. Just download the NBC Sports Predictor app and you could be the next big winner.
You can play along every week with Sunday Night 7. Make your picks on the NBC Sports Predictor app. There will be a $100,000 jackpot every single week, so don't worry if you missed last night's game. There will be another chance to play this upcoming Sunday as the Pittsburgh Steelers are yet again in primetime facing the Buffalo Bills. Can't get enough of the Washington football team, though. Don't worry, I get it. Don't miss Washington Football Rewind versus the Steelers Wednesday night at 8:30 p.m. We will replay the game with additional analysis from Brian Mitchell, JP Finley, and myself only on NBC Sports Washington this Wednesday night at 8:30 p.m. Now, if you're having trouble figuring out the schedule, we don't blame you. Let's walk through it together. Now, the domino effect started when the Ravens-Steelers game on Thanksgiving was postponed to last Sunday because of a COVID-19 outbreak in the Ravens locker room. That game was rescheduled 2 more times, first to Tuesday, then finally played last Wednesday afternoon, where the Steelers won 19-14. And because of that, the NFL had to give the Steelers more time to prepare for this week's game, so they moved Washington-Pittsburgh game from 1 p.m. on Sunday to 5 p.m. today. Meanwhile, the Ravens game against Dallas, which was supposed to be last Thursday, will be played tomorrow night instead. Got it? Okay, stay with me. Meanwhile, the Steelers win Wednesday, moved them to 11-0, and they're just the 8th team since 1991 to win their first 11 games of the season. The last team that has started 11-0 and won the Super Bowl were the 2009 Saints. So you saw Washington on that list, 11-0 in 1991 on their road to the Super Bowl, and that was mostly because of a second-year punt and kick returner by the name of Brian Mitchell. B. Mitch, I'm putting you on the spot here. Tough question. Who you got? 1991 Washington, 2020 Pittsburgh.
I got 1991 Washington against any team in history. To be honest with you, that team was ranked in the top 5 on all 3, offense, defense, and special teams. I mean, at the point at 11-0, Mark Rippon was sacked only 4 times. At that point, they averaged 140 yards per game on the ground, and they gave up only 89. So they were dominant offensively and defensively. And I believe Trevor should, and I'm sure Trevor agrees with this. Games are won in the trenches. The big guys are normally the ones that go out there and make it goes into your favor. But you know what? People love the receivers. They love the running backs, love the DBs, but those big guys get it done.
Yeah, the big guys getting it done inside. But, Brian, you mentioned special teams, and that is an underappreciated part of a dominant team that you guys were in 91.
Jason, you also know what it's like to be on an undefeated team. That was your final year at Auburn. You were the starter. What is it like, the pressure to remain undefeated?
It's a lot of pressure, but it's not a lot of pressure at all when you're having fun. I think it just, it just mounts up more and more. I think once more people start talking about it, you can keep your teammates from reading the clippings and understanding that we still got a lot of work to do and what's in front of us. Then it can be a lot of fun. And I think the more you focus on what's ahead of you, then more so than the record, I think that's how you keep things in perspective. But it's nothing like it. I got to tell people, I was like, those are type of years that you talk about when you're continue to get older and older, and you just continue to, it's more fun when you hear other people talk about it. Like B. Mitch, I'm pretty sure his hair, if he had some, would come back on his head, from hearing about this type of stuff. So that's what you enjoy the most, is other people talking about it.
What do you remember about that 2004 Auburn team and the drive you guys had to remain undefeated, though?
Yeah, I was happy to be in the SEC championship game. We was up 21-7. Also, we let Tennessee get back in the game. It's 21-21, and we had the ball back on offense. We had a lot of our seniors were on offense, so for us to have to finish the game off, we put it on our shoulders, and we ended up going on to win that game 38-27. We had 2 touchdown passes late in the game, and I think that what gave us the opportunity to succeed. But you trying to stay undefeated is up to the leaders, though, like to get things going when someone puts your back against the wall. Because it's going to happen. It may happen tonight against Pittsburgh. Look at the Giants. They went to Seattle last night and won. So Washington, they can have that same type of success tonight.
I feel like I'm watching the highlights with you. You remember that game well. Guys, we know that the Steelers have the best record in the NFL, but Torrey, are they the best team?
The Steelers are a real contender, but the Steelers are the worst undefeated team in the history of football.
Wow.
They have a chance to win the Super Bowl, but you have to look about it. They're playing great defense, but they aren't locking everything down in the run game. There isn't one thing that you can say they do better than anyone. They're getting after the quarterback, sure. But offensively, that doesn't look like a championship team right now. Do they have the opportunity to win it? Yes. But when you're undefeated, you're supposed to look like the Patriots were when they had Randy Moss. There's just the one thing that you're doing way better than everyone. It's clear each and every week that you're the better team. Right now, they're figuring out a way to come out on top, which is the most important thing in football, to score more points than the other, but they aren't dominant, and they can be had today.
And you wonder if they get in games against a team like a Kansas City Chiefs, will they be able to keep up point for point? And I think that's the thing when people look at. They look at the Chiefs and they say, this team can put 40, 50 up on anybody. And if they were to put 40 or 50 up on the Steelers, does the Steelers have enough on offense to come back and combat that? So, but still, they're undefeated. They find ways to win even when they don't play very well, and that's a good sign of a team.
Well, the best thing about this team is that they lead the NFL in sacks. I mean, they are phenomenal at getting to the quarterback. But wait, Devin Bush, linebacker, is out for the season now with an injury. And all of a sudden, they lost Bud Dupree with an injury, another linebacker, their leading sacker. Can they continue that pace on what was making them the best in the league, what made people think they could win the Super Bowl? We may find out a little bit of that today against Washington.
Torrey, we expect you to say that Pittsburgh is still a little worse on the team in football. That's not a shocker. But I say this. That's hard to say because it's hard to win in the NFL. We all know that. It's any given Sunday you can be beat by anybody. So, the fact that they've gotten to this point at 11-0 and losing a guy like, Dupree, who was a major part of their sack leader at that time, it pays huge dividends. So in order to get things back on track and to have to move around, this is the first time ever as well, teams have had to face a COVID situation during the football season where games are getting moved, practices are getting moved. You may not practice. You may show up on Sunday and play. That's difficult. So, we all have to take that into effect as well. So I think as long as you're winning, you just want to be playing your best football by the mid-December going to the playoffs. And I think that's why Mike Tomlin said last week was a tough game for them because they're not playing their best football right now. And I think that's the biggest concern.
So many moving parts and obstacles to overcome, that's for sure, Jason. The Washington secondary, you guys, will be under the gun this week. So many weapons to stop in that Pittsburgh offense. Former Steelers DB Ike Taylor actually joined JP Finley and the guys on the Washington Football Talk podcast earlier this week and said that the best way to stop the Steelers receivers is to hit them early and often.
Teams who win Super Bowl, teams with high secondary rankings, they secondary guys, they tackle well in space. And you saw the Baltimore Ravens last night play the Pittsburgh Steelers. Them boys tackle well in space. A lot of guys like the interceptions. A lot of guys like the cover corners. but they really can't tackle. Tackling for a cornerback or a secondary guy is a want to. In order for the plan of the Pittsburgh Steelers and that 7 getting the ball out fast, in order to disrupt that, your secondary has to be good tackles. So now y'all got to look at the Washington team and be like, okay, I like our front four. We know the ball is going to come out quick. Do our secondary guys tackle well in open space?
We now welcome JP Finley back to the show. He is brought to us courtesy of Oarsman Automotive of Virginia. JP, Pittsburgh presents a tough test for Washington today, and one guy who will have a spotlight on him is rookie safety Cameron Curl.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Jordan. You know, so much of Washington's defensive philosophy is built on getting to the quarterback. But Ben Roethlisberger just doesn't go down very much. The Steelers have only given up 10 sacks this year, and Ben Roethlisberger hasn't been sacked in their last 4 games. Think about that. Washington's averaging about 4 a game, and Ben's just not going down. So what are they going to need? They're going to need their secondary to make tackles in the open field. That means Kendall Fuller, Ronald Darby, and it means 7th-round rookie Cam Curl. Curl has been a really big highlight for this Washington defense, and honestly, he wasn't even sure he was going to make the team.
Really, probably thought I was going to be special teams player or something like that, a good backup, but the opportunity came, and here we are. When the game starts slowing down, when I start seeing everything on the field, you know what I'm saying, when I start being more comfortable out there, because I'm getting way more comfortable now, so now I'm feeling like I belong, because I'm not out there wide-eyed and stuff. I'm out there comfortable, moving at the right tempo.
What's it like in the locker room? What's it like with DB coaches and Jack Del Rio's your coordinator? How is that adjustment going for you?
Oh, it's going good. I like the staff. You know, we got the players and the coaches. We got good DB coaches. You know, we can relate to them real well. They keep it real with us all the time. You know, in the DB room, it's a group full of good guys. Like, I like everybody in the DB room. We real close. You know, we joke around, but we still know when it's time to get down to business, we can do that too.
You can hear that full interview with Cam Curl on the Washington Football Talk podcast. Ron Rivera has talked repeatedly about young players on this roster that are getting a chance to play and that are starting to prove they belong. Cam Curl is absolutely one of those guys, and I think one thing that stands out about him is his ability to tackle in the open field, kind of what Ike Taylor mentioned earlier in the show. Torrey Smith, I'd like to talk to you as a receiver. When you know that the opposing secondary is able to get you down, and some of these guys are thumpers, particularly DeShazer Everett, who's going to be back on the field, capable of big hits at any point, what does that do to your mindset as a wideout?
One, you have to keep your head in a swivel and be aware. You know there's some thumpers out there, but also you just know you're going to have to work for everything. As a receiver, you expect to break tackles, you expect to score, but when you're going against a disciplined team, you know you have to protect the ball. You want to hold the ball a little bit tighter. They're coming in there, they're trying to rip it out. This Pittsburgh Steelers defense, their secondary, they're well coached. They're playmakers. Joe Hayden's doing a great job out there. He just had a pick 6 last week, so you know you're going to have to protect the ball. You know they're coming to get it.
Thanks, JP, so much. We'll check in with you in a little bit. All right, before you learn how to run, you have to learn how to walk. Before you become a Super Bowl contender, you have to learn how to win. Is the Washington football team starting to do that? The Burgundy and Gold are aiming for their first 3-game win streak in more than 2 seasons today. And the NBA season is right around the corner. There are some hard choices in life, but choosing Yahoo for fantasy basketball isn't one of them. Yahoo Fantasy Basketball is easy to play. You can start and end your season whenever you want, and it's totally free. So choose the easy way to ball. Play Yahoo Fantasy Basketball, the official fantasy game of the NBA. And for the first time in quite some time, Washington will be rocking their all-white uniforms at Heinz Field today. So fresh, so clean. Not for long, though. We're back in a moment. One of the biggest plays from Thanksgiving, the Cowboys' fake punt that didn't come close to working. Washington special teams stopped it. Then they outscored Dallas 21-0. Cowboy fans couldn't believe it, but we loved every second of it, and we spotlight the play in this week's Field Pass.
It's a fake punt for Dallas. They do an end around here with Cedric Wilson, who's at the 20 and met by 2 Washington players. Stuffed there. Washington will take over.
Cedric Wilson was supposed to throw that football. He stood no chance to pick that up running.
The process of watching for fakes starts with the preparation. In that case, our punt return team was out there. They put their gunner in motion. Anytime there's a motion, we have mechanics where we can play zone within man, and that's what happened there. They ended up having a deep corner route. Danny ended up being deep enough to take away the smash concept. Our interior players, Khalid Hudson and Cole Luke, ended up pulling up the reverse, and Khalid, position he plays, he can't let anything outside of him. When you see flow going away when you're Khalid, then your job is to look for anything that's a cutback or a reverse. So that's why Khalid was there in the flat once the reverse action came back. And Danny was deep enough to discourage the throw, so then once the throw was taken away, then he had to run it. Once we got it pulled up, that played more into our favor, and those guys did a nice job making the tackle.
So on Thanksgiving, we saw a heads-up special teams play. We saw a couple trick plays work for Washington, and Terry McLaurin may have saved the day by preventing an interception return for a touchdown. These are the type of plays that young teams have to learn how to make. So with that, let's enter our team meeting portion of the show. How do young teams become winning teams? B. Mitch, take it away.
Well, there's a lot. You hear Trevor talk about it a lot about how they have to learn how to win. I think for all of us, we were once young. And we got on the team with some older players, and we began to watch them. And you think it's just watching the older guys, but something inside of you has to click. Trevor, you talk about it so much. What would you say is the way that people learn how to win?
Well, Brian, it starts with focusing from the very beginning. There are a lot of details that go into this. But the big picture is that as they have learned to start fast, they've been able to win games. If you look at their last 4 games, the first 2 they lost. And they dug themselves a deep hole in the first half, down by 14 points or more at halftime. Then they dominated the second half of both of those games, but fell just short and lost. And then their last 2 games, they won. The first half, they came out and played hard. The games were close on the scoreboard at halftime. Then they came out and dominated the second half and pulled away. And that's been the big difference. Big picture, playing 4 quarters instead of 2, this team can play with anybody.
You know, and for me, I always felt that it was about the preparation. You know, a lot of times young players, we get into the game and we don't understand that you can win or lose that game during the week. And Ernest Viner was a guy who basically taught me about studying and preparing and to know more about the opponent than I knew about myself. That helped me learn how to win. Torrey, when you were out there playing, what was it or when was that moment that it clicked for you of, I'm learning now how to get this thing done?
It all started in practice, and really was just about having that success. Once you actually go through the fire and you learn what it feels like, whether you fail or you get it done, that's all a part of learning how to win. Because once you get that feeling and you've been in that moment, you're comfortable with it. You've been there before and you know what's expected of you, and you're expected to get it done. And so this is a team that's really been a difference over the past few weeks. It's third down. If you need to get a stop on defense, you're getting it done. If it's third down and you need to stay on the field to keep the offense from getting another chance to score, you stay on the field to still win for your team. That's all a part of that process. And once you've been there, again, it's an expectation and a feeling that is, once you have it, it's a great feeling for the team and organization.
Yeah, winning is all about having those expectations. You got to expect to win every time you touch the field. And it's another thing is just gaining confidence. I think, you know, in order to get victories in a row, you got to win that first one. And once you win that first one, you kind of carry on to that second one. But, you know, it's definitely a confidence thing and it's a momentum. You know, you got to ride the wave sometimes. You know, the season is broken up into 4 quarters, we call it, because of the 16-game regular season. And you got to try to do what you can and break them down into quarters and win each quarter. And I think the more this team continues to win and they begin to taste it, then when you do lose, you feel bad about it. It makes you work that much harder during the week to want to get that out your mouth and come back the next week and put a W back in the column. So, you know, winning is contagious. You know, it's something that you win and the next person just keeps going throughout the locker room. It's not much you have to say once you start to win because guys all feed off of it.
As Jordan talked about earlier, it's about young guys also learning how to get it done, which you saw Terry McLaurin do. And when you watch a guy like Chase Young on the sideline, when offense is on the field, when defense is on the field, he's still involved with the game. That right there is a sign of guys starting to get it and feel it and understand and learn how to win. Back to you, Jordan.
One win at a time. Thanks, guys. Well, it was just last month that America was obsessed with CNN's John King. The man never slept, hanging by his trusty touchscreen, analyzing the most recent election. RP Haley was watching closely, taking notes, and Pete was inspired to break down the race in the NFC East.
The race to 6 has become a race to 7 in the NFC East. I'm Peter Haley reporting from Capitol Hill, bringing you the latest in this division's race. Let's go over here to the standings, please. Bring Cameron. The Giants scored a pivotal win in Seattle. Our projection models did not have that one going their way, and that is why the race to 6 is now a race to 7, okay? They're in the driver's seat. Beep, beep, honk, honk. Washington, 4-7. They have the Steelers matchup today. If they win, awesome. If they lose, it's not the end of the world. We'll explain why soon. The Eagles, they stink. The Cowboys, they stink. 2-horse race, giddy up. Okay, let's bring the camera over here to the remaining schedule. Washington's playing Pittsburgh tonight. If they lose, again, not the end of the world. Let's put them down for a loss if we could. Now, let's put these two down here for a win. Eagles flailing, Panthers not that great. So Washington needs to secure a win in one of these two games. It can be either one. This gets them to the race to 7. This gets them to the race to 7, okay? And one last thing before tossing back to the studio. What's this? Hello. Wild card, still very much in play. Bring the camera in one last time. Seattle, the Bucks, those two, fine. The Vikings, though, look at this, 6-6 with a lot of people lurking. Washington can score a win on Monday against the Steelers. Hello, they insert themselves into the race. So, the race to 7 is what matters most for Washington. Outside shot at the wild card. Interesting December as things heat up in the NFC East.
Oh, did he nail that or what? A lot of free time during quarantine, Pete Haley. Still waiting for this week for the late returns from the Cowboys-Ravens game tomorrow, of course. This is the up-to-date standings in the NFC. Saints, Packers, Rams, and Giants on top of the 4 divisions. The Vikings have slipped into the playoff picture while the Cardinals have fallen out. Washington there remains just a half a game behind the Giants in the East. Jason, talk to me. Do you have any more clarity on the NFC East?
Well, I tell you what, that was a huge win by the Giants yesterday. I think no one was expecting that win to happen, and I think it put a little bit more pressure on Washington tonight to try to have to knock off the Pittsburgh Steelers. But like I say, win or lose this game, there's still other games out there that they can go and get. But if they can knock off the Steelers tonight, man, you're talking about it's definitely a 2-horse race right now. I think it's going to come down between the Giants and Washington. I think Dallas is done. I believe Philly is done. They've kind of went in there, and this is what you want. Going down to the season, it's come down to these two teams, and Washington's in great position to have an opportunity at the end of the year.
Go ahead, Trevor.
Oh, no, I was going to say, now that the Giants have kind of stolen one, I mean, looking at the schedule from 2 weeks ago, it didn't look like there was any way the Giants could beat Seattle, but they did. Now Washington has to do the same thing, and 2 weeks ago it seemed impossible to beat the Steelers, but with the COVID situation, with the short week of preparation, with Washington having an extra, basically half a week to rest and prepare, this is different now than it looked like it was a couple of weeks ago. So Washington has a chance to steal that win right back.
Yeah, this is a two-man race, obviously, between the Giants and Washington. But Washington, this is the time of the year we start to kind of count those games. So that loss by Seattle, that hurts. But you watch it and you're like, hey, we can go out there, we can get this win, and you're feeling good about yourself going forward because of your schedule. And I think the Washington football team has a lot of momentum, and they can build if they can win today.
And I think when you look at this time of the year, it's December, and you still have meaningful football games going on. But Washington can't sit there and start worrying about what the Giants are doing. They have to handle what they can do. If they go out and win games, and that's all that matters. I know that many people don't give you a chance, but you win games, and the Giants keep going along, and whatever happens to them, let us worry about that. The football players need to worry about winning football games, and I believe 3-2 or better is what they're going to need to go down the stretch to make sure they have a chance to win the division.
I'm all here for the optimism. Thank you for bringing that to the table, you guys. This year, Dominion National is asking you to submit what makes you smile using the hashtag #MakesYouSmile. Tune in to Postgame Live and find out what made our analysts smile. And it wasn't just the turkey that made us smile on Thanksgiving Day. How about the first career pick 6 for Montez Sweat? Montez will have to have another big game tonight for Washington to get a win in Pittsburgh. We'll go around the horn next as our experts will tell you how the Burgundy and Gold can pull off one of the biggest upsets of the season. Can't get enough enough of the Washington football team. Don't miss Washington Football Rewind versus the Steelers Wednesday night at 8:30 p.m. Replay the game with additional commentary from Brian Mitchell, JP Finley, and myself only on NBC Sports Washington. Remember, this week it's on Wednesday at 8:30 p.m. But first, here are B. Mitch's 3 keys to victory versus Pittsburgh.
My 3 keys to the game this week as the Washington football team takes on the Pittsburgh Steelers is that they must run the football. They have to get out there and run the football effectively to allow themselves a chance to be able to pass the football. You can't be one-dimensional against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Secondly, they have to make sure that they protect Alex Smith because we have seen that this team gets to the quarterback on a regular basis. And I don't think you want Alex Smith getting hit a lot. And then lastly, I think that our defensive line and pass rushers have to do what they were brought here to do. They have to make sure that they constantly get to Ben Roethlisberger. He is the key to this team, and they have all kind of receivers out there. So if you get to Ben and start to affect him, you have a chance to affect their offense. So my 3 keys: run the football, Washington. Make sure you protect Alex Smith, and you have to get to Ben Roethlisberger. If you do those 3 things, then you have a chance to upset the undefeated Steelers.
Hopefully this team listens to Brian's keys to victory. Either way, we'll be breaking down all the action immediately following the game. Tune into Postgame Live as soon as the final whistle sounds. We'll bring you live player interviews from Heinz Field and Ron Rivera's press conference right here on NBC Sports Washington. Now, part of the reason why we're with you tonight instead of yesterday is the COVID flare-up around the league. No team was hit harder than the Denver Broncos last week. Ron Rivera said that he is concerned about the league being able to finish this season, but he's optimistic about the chances.
If something happens and we have to pause for a week, well, then it's a bye week for everybody, and then we pick up where we left off. I think that's most certainly a doable thing if that's what we have to do. But I do think we're committed as a league to trying to play every game and then get into a playoffs and have a regular playoffs and have a Super Bowl. That would be a huge victory for not just us, but for our fans and quite honestly for the nation. That that if you do things the right way, maybe it helps. Maybe it gets other people to go, wow, look what they did, and this is a group of people that we're committed to doing it, and hopefully we can accomplish that.
Let's now welcome back team insider JP Finley to the show. JP, Morgan Moses has been an Ironman for Washington, and today he goes back to his natural position.
Yeah, absolutely. It's good news for Washington as they bring Cornelius Lucas back. He's missed a few games. He'll be on the left side. Morgan Moses gets to go back to the right side. We talked in the show a little earlier about DeShazer Everett. He will be back on the field. You can expect him to do his normal routine where there's a few big hits and keep those receivers looking. On the other side of the football, though, keep this in mind for Pittsburgh. James Conner, their running back, is still out. He was placed on the COVID list. And Chris Boswell, the Steelers' kicker, won't be playing. So they're going with a backup kicker that's been on their practice squad. If this game gets close and those wins are circling up in Pittsburgh, that is absolutely something to keep an eye on with a number 2 kicker for Pittsburgh.
Thanks so much for the updates, JP. We will see you in postgame.
Sounds good.
All right, make sure to get so much more content from JP Finley along with Pete Haley and Mitch Tischler on the Washington Football Talk podcast. Download and subscribe for the latest news and opinions from the guys. All right, so we've talked about the Steelers being an 11-0 and earlier in the show. Let's focus on today, you guys, and I want to start with the defensive side of the ball. How does Washington slow down Pittsburgh's attack, B. Mitch?
Well, I think you don't have James Conner, so the running game, you need to stop that, to make them one-dimensional and have Ben throwing the ball around. He wants to do it anyway, and he gets the ball out of his hands quickly. But you just saw that little quote from Mike Taylor. They're going to have to come up and play some bump and run. If you allow those guys to freely come off the line of scrimmage, it could be a long day for you.
Yeah, that's a critical part of it, Brian, because the wide receivers are the primary targets for Ben Roethlisberger, and he hits them quickly. He leads the league in the shortest release from snap to throw. And so it's really hard to get there if you allow them any space at all to run in terms of those receivers. Now, the interesting thing is they don't throw as much as I thought they might to the running backs or the tight ends, but those receivers you have to take away on the short routes to give your pass rush any time, any chance.
I can tell you from experience, both of these men are right. You do not want to get hands put on you. It throws off your timing, and with Big Ben, you want to get hands on, disrupt the receivers, but also get after him with your front four. If you can get pressure on him by guys winning one-on-one matchups, and they will have one-on-one matchups because the entire line will be trying to block Chase Young, win your battle and get to Big Ben, and that will help this defense go a long way.
I'm like Torrey. I agree with all three of you guys. So not just
this is shocking. Torrey said
hey,
both of you guys
shocking.
are right, and you guys agree.
You know?
This is wild.
Hey, well, I'm gonna say this though. Like I said, you do have to come and play bump and run. We're gonna have to try to win the one-on-one matchups because you want to allow Washington defensive front to kind of get out there Pittsburgh's offensive line. See if you can get the Ben. You don't want Ben to sit back there and get those guys time to run their double moves and get down the field. That's what they're really good at. But if we can find a way to create pressure and make him get rid of the ball earlier than he wants, and hopefully turn those into turnovers and give our offense a short field, then you got an opportunity to win the game tonight. But you definitely cannot let him sit back there and pat the ball and wait for guys to get into their second depth of their defensive backs, because Washington has given up big plays early in games this year, and has caused us to have to fight back from behind. So hopefully, we do get in a bump and run situation that, we have the mindset that we can get our head around, not get beat on some of those deep balls early in the game.
Trevor, you mentioned him, Big Ben. Other than him, which Steelers skill player scares you the most today?
I'm worried about Chase Claypool, actually, wide receiver. He's their leading receiver. He's got lots of speed. He's just a rookie, and he got instant chemistry with Ben Roethlisberger. And that instant chemistry means quickly. I mean, Ben is known for standing back in the pocket, waiting for 3 days, shrugging off sackers, waiting for his receivers to get deep down the field, and then slinging it down there. Well, that's okay for a receiver if you're young, because you just got to run for a while. In this case, he's got to be precise with his route so that Ben knows where he's going to be to get the ball out quickly. And that precision has happened quickly with the rookie Claypool.
Yeah, I agree with what you said, Trevor. Claypool has been the guy. He's been the undisputed guy. They've always get this young receiver every year. It seems like they seem to find a guy once they lose someone. And Claypool has been a guy that, if you're going to try to get up and play bump and run with him and try to take him out of the game, I think he's the guy that you go after. You look at Washington. Washington's a bigger guy. He can stretch the field a little bit more. He's a big play receiver. Go up, get the ball. But everyone knows about Juju Schuster. He's going to get his. But what we can't do for Juju is let Juju get those big plays over the top of us. And you can keep everything in front of us, and make them go the distance. Like I said, they're not playing with their starting kicker tonight. So I'm pretty sure you have to keep that in the back of your mind if you're watching this defense and know, like, hey, make them go the distance and make them have to kick field goals and see if the young kicker that they have to take off practice squad can beat you.
Well, they have 5 receivers, and they have Ebron as well. And I think that's the thing that troubles me the most, because when you look at our secondary, Ronald Darby started to play better. Kendall Fuller plays well. But do we have the people to match up with those guys if they start going down the field? That's where I'm concerned. So I believe when you go out there and you bump and run, you make the quarterback have to hold the ball, you throw them off their timing, it gives you a better chance. If we sit back and allow those receivers and Ben to do the things they were doing, it could be a tough game for us.
We talked about they need to play bump and run. Well, as a receiver, bump and run, your eyes light up. You have the opportunity to go down the field. Big Ben is known for being a down-the-field guy. This year, they switched it up a little bit, but you have Chase Claypool. He's the biggest threat on the outside, and you can be having a great defensive drive or even playing a great game. But a guy like that, if he gets loose, it could turn the game around, so you have to keep them in check.
Jason, quickly here, Steelers lead the league in sacks with 41. How concerned are we about Alex Smith's mobility up against a team that wastes no time getting to the quarterback?
Oh, you're very concerned. Yes, we won the last 2 games, but at the same time, we haven't faced the defensive front, like this. We beat Cincinnati, we beat the Cowboys, who were both struggling. But, you're going to get the best defense tonight because, like I said, Mike Tomlin is not happy with his defensive performance last week and overall. And they're going to come out with a little bit more minimum tonight, come out with a little bit more edgy and attitude. And so we've got to help the offensive line out tonight. We're going to have to chip with our backs. Our backs are going to have to get involved in the passing game and chip before they get out to their route. So maybe keep a tight end in there. Maybe Logan Thomas chip before he goes out to his route. So you got to get these offensive linemen some help tonight.
Yeah, I agree, Jason. This Steelers defense is not the brick wall against the run that people think. This is an opportunity for Antonio Gibson.
Yeah, get physical, go out there and play the game. Bring the fight to them and show everybody who you really are. This is a team that's been ready for this opportunity, and now they have the big stage for everyone to see.
Alex says more confidence. His legs may be the secret weapon tonight.
Do they pull off the upset today, B-Mitch?
I am, because I'm starting to feel a little something out there.
All right. We have to go. It's just about time for kickoff. Don't forget to join us right here, NBC Sports Washington, for your post-game coverage as soon as that final whistle sounds.